It all began on a chilly Monday morning, the kind where the air smelled crisp and the dew clung to the grass. Charlie stood on the front porch of his farmhouse, sipping his coffee and taking in the serene view of his family's land. This farm was more than just property to him. It was his legacy, passed down from his father, who had spent his life nurturing every inch of it. And at the heart of this legacy stood the bridge. A sturdy wooden structure, built by his father decades ago, connected the farm to the main road. It wasn't just a bridge, it was a lifeline, a symbol of his family's hard work and resilience. Charlie's farm sat just outside the Nebby suburban development, a small pocket of farmland surrounded by sprawling cookie-cutter homes. The suburb was under the tight grip of a newly formed homeowners association, HOA, infamous for its draconian rules and ridiculous fines. While Charlie's farm was technically outside their jurisdiction, that didn't stop them from trying to enforce their power. For the most part, Charlie ignored them, figuring they would eventually get bored and move on. He wasn't part of their community, and he had made it clear that their rules didn't apply to him. But the HOA had other ideas. A letter arrived in Charlie's mailbox one afternoon, stamped with the official HOA logo. It was a notice demanding that he remove the bridge, citing it as an unapproved structure that violated their community standards. Charlie read the letter twice, then chuckled. They couldn't be serious. The bridge had been there for years, long before the HOA even existed. Shrugging it off, he crumpled the letter and tossed it aside, thinking that would be the end of it. He was wrong. A second letter arrived a week later. This one was more aggressive, threatening fines and legal action if he didn't comply within 14 days. Charlie's amusement turned into annoyance. It was time to respond. Grabbing his phone, he called the HOA office and calmly explained that the bridge was on his property and had nothing to do with them. The voice on the other end was dismissive, almost smug, insisting that the bridge had to go. Charlie clenched his jaw. If you think you have the right to touch my bridge, you'd better bring a court order. He hung up, thinking that would be enough to scare them off. He was wrong again. One morning, just before dawn, the sound of heavy machinery jolted Charlie awake. He rushed outside, still in his flannel shirt and boots, and froze. There, in front of him, was a bulldozer, tearing down his bridge. Charlie stormed toward the machine, shouting for them to stop. But within minutes, the bridge was reduced to a pile of splintered wood and twisted metal. The contractor handed Charlie a copy of the demolition order, nodded, and left without a word. Charlie stood in silence, fists clenched, staring at the wreckage. His father's bridge was gone. The weight of what had just happened settled in his chest, heavy and suffocating. It wasn't just about the bridge. This was an attack on his home, his history, his family. He could have lost it right then and there. But Charlie wasn't the type to act on impulse. No, he was a man of strategy. A man who understood that revenge was a dish best served cold. Charlie took a deep breath, his mind already calculating his next move. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The first step was gathering evidence. Charlie spent the rest of the morning taking pictures of the wreckage, documenting every angle, every piece of debris. He knew he would need proof, lots of it. Next, he dug out the original property deeds and zoning documents, confirming what he already knew. The HOA had no legal authority over his land. They had crossed a line. And now, it was time to make them pay. But Charlie wasn't just planning to get back his bridge. He had something much bigger in mind. He wanted to bring down the entire HOA. Charlie's first move was legal warfare. He took his evidence straight to his lawyer, Dan Whitaker, a man known for taking down corrupt organizations. When Dan saw the footage and the documents, his eyebrows lifted. They really think they can get away with this? Dan muttered. They're in for a rude awakening. Dan filed a cease and desist order against the HOA and prepared a lawsuit for the destruction of private property. But Charlie wasn't just waiting around for the courts. He had a second plan. He printed out flyers detailing what the HOA had done, complete with before and after pictures, and started passing them around town. You want to know what kind of people run the HOA? Read this. Within a week, the town was buzzing with the story. The HOA had messed with the wrong man. And Charlie wasn't done yet. Charlie's flyers spread like wildfire. Within days, people from all over town were talking about what had happened. The HOA had bullied people before, but tearing down a historical family bridge was a new low. Neighbors started reaching out to Charlie, sharing their own stories of the HOA's overreach, unfair fines, forced aesthetic changes, and even threats of legal action. Many of them had been too afraid to fight back. Until now. Charlie called a town meeting, using the local community center as a rallying point. The night of the meeting, the hall was packed, standing room only. People murmured in frustration, exchanging horror stories about their own run-ins with the HOA. Charlie stood up. They came for my bridge today, he said, voice calm but powerful. Tomorrow, they'll come for your driveways, your fences, your homes. It stops here. A roar of agreement filled the room. And so, the fight truly began. Dan, Charlie's lawyer, wasted no time. The lawsuit was filed within a week. The claims? Illegal property destruction, trespassing, and harassment. The HOA board members were served personally, and when they read the charges, panic spread like wildfire among them. Meanwhile, Charlie continued to expose their corruption. He contacted the local news station, which ran a segment on the destruction of his bridge, showcasing the before and after footage from his security cameras. The HOA had never dealt with this kind of public backlash before, and it was only getting worse. As Charlie's case gained traction, the HOA fought back. They sent their own lawyers, claiming the bridge had been a safety hazard. They started issuing more fines to Charlie's supporters, trying to intimidate the rebellion. But the community stood firm. Charlie launched a fundraiser to cover legal fees. Within a week, donations poured in, covering every cost. Then, the biggest bombshell dropped. Dan uncovered financial fraud within the HOA. It turned out, the board members had been pocketing fines and misusing funds for years. And now, they were about to face criminal charges. The lawsuit went to court. With Charlie's video evidence, the HOA's fraud records, and dozens of angry homeowners testifying, the judge ruled in Charlie's favor. The HOA was ordered to pay massive damages to Charlie and return all illegally taken funds to the homeowners. Then, the state attorney stepped in, filing criminal charges against the HOA leadership. Charlie stood outside the courthouse, watching as the former HOA president was led away in handcuffs. The war was over, and Charlie had won. With the HOA officially dissolved, Charlie turned his attention to restoring his land. With the help of his newfound allies, he rebuilt the bridge stronger than ever. As he stood on it, looking over his farm, he felt a sense of peace. No HOA, no harassment, just freedom. And if anyone ever tried to take that away again, they'd know exactly what kind of fight they were in for.